Earlier this week, we discussed the epic issue number 18 of the Darth Vader comic, wherein we saw Tarkin attempt, quite successfully, to hunt Darth Vader. As part of the issue, Tarkin references the meaning behind the hunt. Vader requested that Tarkin attempt to not just hunt, but to kill him, if the Imperial officer could. As seen in the issue, Tarkin had his own theories on why Vader wanted this done, but he notes that the Sith Lord had somehow learned of his past, particularly the savagery of his youth on Eriadu and Tarkin's skill at the hunt. However, there's much more going on here than a simple debt being repaid stemming from Mon Cala. In many ways, the action scene in issue number 18 with Tarkin hunting Vader is the culmination of the story that began with the Tarkin novel, and the long-term planning of Palpatine to try to create a strong rapport and mutual respect between Vader and Tarkin. More than that, although it seems like Tarkin may have forgotten by the time of issue number 18, we do know exactly how Vader came to understand Tarkin's past, and why his request for Tarkin to hunt him isn't in any way unusual or bizarre. In this video expose, I will describe how Vader learned about Tarkin's savage past and learned to respect the Grand Moff. As seen in the novel Tarkin, taking place roughly 5 years after the events of Episode 3, although they had undertaken a number of missions for the Empire together in its first half-decade, Vader was no fan of Tarkin. In being given a mission directly from Palpatine, wherein Vader and Tarkin would investigate a cache of communication devices and report the findings to Palpatine himself, Vader let his master know that he would prefer it if Tarkin did not accompany him to Murkana. The Sith Lord tried to play it off as if he felt the mission wasn't so serious as to need to involve both of them, and thus Tarkin's skills could be used elsewhere. But Palpatine knew better and made it clear to his apprentice that they were both to travel to Murkana. Vader further showed his distaste for Tarkin when he turned his back on his master and asked which one of them would be in command of the mission. Palpatine dismissed the question, simply telling Vader that he would leave it for them to work out, but it gave the Dark Lord of the Sith an opportunity to explore Vader's view of Tarkin more thoroughly. Palpatine started by stating that the three of them, all hailing from relatively insignificant worlds that occupied a small slice of the galaxy, were all born for greatness, including Tarkin. Further, Palpatine stated that while he and Vader had passed their trials as Sith and Jedi, proving their greatness, Tarkin possessed unparalleled dedication and powers as well. Not completely convinced, Vader asked his master what trials Tarkin had passed. While initially Palpatine reminded Vader of the bleakness and hostility of Tarkin's homeworld of Eriadu, the Dark Lord of the Sith simply concluded by stating that Tarkin endured trials that transformed him into the military mastermind he'd become. Further, for Vader to get the entire picture, Palpatine asked his apprentice if he knew why Tarkin's personal ship was named the Carrion Spike, and when Vader didn't, Palpatine told him to ask Tarkin. These actions by Palpatine weren't about Vader uncovering simple facts about Tarkin's life. Rather, it was about Palpatine orchestrating a deliberate plan to bring Vader and Tarkin together as allies who had a mutual respect for each other. As Palpatine reflected upon Vader's poor attitude towards the mission and Tarkin, and also learning that Tarkin wasn't pleased with the assignment either, the Tarkin novel shows the extent that Palpatine wished to establish a rapport between who he saw as the most important pieces in the Galactic Empire. Going back to the time of the Clone War, Sidious made every attempt to promote a mutual respect between Anakin and Tarkin, but to Palpatine's displeasure, the relationship never prospered to his satisfaction. In fact, as he recognized, Tarkin's involvement in the trial of Ahsoka Tano regarding the bombing of the Jedi Temple did nothing but create a rift between Anakin and Tarkin, one that spilled over into the Imperial era and was never mended. There had yet to be a true appreciation for each other's talents, particularly from Vader in relation to Tarkin. In having Vader question Tarkin about the Carrion Spike, Palpatine was hoping that Vader would learn more about Tarkin's savage upbringing on Eriadu and the trials that he endured there. And this is exactly what Vader did. Taking his master's advice, Vader directly questioned Tarkin on why he chose to name his Corvette the Carrion Spike. Although a bit surprised at the personal question, Tarkin explained the reason for the name, touching on the details of his upbringing upon Eriadu. Tarkin told Vader the name was connected to a unique geographical mark upon Eriadu where Tarkin would visit annually, called the Carrion Plateau, and endure training and tests given by his elder relatives. With Vader listening intently as they walked down the corridors of the Star Destroyer Executrix, Tarkin continued revealing his experiences upon the plateau. Tarkin focused on the fact that he was never alone on the plateau during these trials, as he always had to deal with the reigning predators of the planet. Each new territory brought with it a new lesson for Tarkin, as he learned how to place himself at the top of the food chain of the Carrion Plateau through fear rather than force, and how to maintain his position at the top. But there was one trial that Tarkin would make the focal point of his story, the trial that would be his final test, and even Vader couldn't help but recognize. Tarkin was to scale a 100-meter tall rock-type fortress called the Carrion Spike, and survive there for an entire day on his own with no food, no water, and carrying only a vibrolance with a limited number of shocks. Tarkin informed Vader about how he spent years preparing for the trial, watching and studying the dominant predator on the spire, the ferocious primate known as the Rvmuller. Tarkin learned their ways, naming the leader Lord, and the next in line behind Lord, Shadow. Finally, on the day of the trial, Tarkin was attacked by the spire's heat, venomous insects from hidden nests, stinging ants, and serpents. Just as he was about to reach the top of the Spike's plateau, Tarkin was finally confronted by the group of Rvmullers, challenged by the leader of the pack, Lord. However, as Tarkin the Intruder was about to be dealt with by Lord, the next in line dominant male Shadow issued an attack not against Tarkin, but against the Rvmuller leader. Only when Shadow emerged victorious and new leader of the pack did Tarkin spring into action and run his vibrolance through the Rvmuller's chest, killing it. Tarkin then told Vader that without a leader, the Rvmullers fell victim to a bewildered type of grief and despair, where none of them came close to attacking him during the rest of his stay atop the Carrion Spike. At sunset, Tarkin began his descent, having successfully defeated both the Spike and the Rvmullers after studying the group's dynamics and preparing himself accordingly. Before disembarking from the Star Destroyer's flight deck, Vader let Tarkin know that he understood the point of the story well. The Rvmullers failed to realize what they would bring down upon themselves by turning on their leader. But more than that, it gave Vader a newfound respect for Tarkin, just as Palpatine had hoped for. This is clear as demonstrated in the rest of the Tarkin novel, but the hunt in issue number 18 is evidence of this as well. It's a bit strange that in the comic, Tarkin isn't sure how Vader discovered the details of his savage upbringing, seeing as how, as we've just seen, it was Tarkin himself who disclosed it to the Sith Lord. It could be one of those situations where it was a forgettable detailing of his past amidst more important tasks regarding the Empire, and over the years, Tarkin just didn't recall telling Vader about his experience on the Carrion Spike and with hunting. But what we do know is that Vader never forgot. Issue number 18 of the Vader comic doesn't just show a cool hunt between Vader and Tarkin, it shows the culmination of Palpatine's long-term plan to develop a rapport between two of the highest-ranking members of the Empire. And remembering Tarkin's savage past, Vader recognized that Tarkin had undergone a trial of his own, thus gaining the respect of the Sith Lord. When Vader needed to know that there were still threats within the galaxy for him, despite the fact that most of the Jedi had been hunted down, he turned to Tarkin, whom as Palpatine wished, he had a mutual respect for regarding his skill. And most importantly, as Palpatine had desired most, the rapport between the characters is best seen at the end of the issue, when neither Vader nor Tarkin takes the hunt to its conclusion. Tarkin allows Vader to live, and Vader allows Tarkin to live, despite the fact that both could have easily finished off the other. Therefore, issue number 18 of the Vader comic really is the conclusion of Palpatine's long-term efforts beginning all the way back during the Clone War. So there we have it, how Vader learned about Tarkin's brutal past and learned to respect the Grand Moff, which is perfectly depicted in issue number 18 of the Vader comic. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter at SW Reading Club for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive hangouts and book discussions. If not for me... For mutual respect.